How we doing today? Good. Well, just comments on the last game. You know, it was obviously a good win for our team. It's great defensively when you have a team effort where, you know, we put together a shutout. And I was really pleased with the way our guys responded, you know, in that game. We got to play a lot of players in the game, which I think, you know, helps the development of a lot of young players. And at certain positions now, we have quite a few young players involved in the game. So that was very good for, you know, for them. So I have a lot of faith, you know, in this team. We're certainly a developing team right now. We're got to play with more passion and aggressiveness on a consistent basis and be confident in what we're doing and, you know, focus on what we need to do to play well down in, down out, and just got to be aggressive. And I think that's the most important thing, you know, for our team to do right now. We had some players of the week: Kenyon Drake, Calvin Ridley on offense, 7 guys on defense. I think you've got them all. We basically, you know, it's probably a team defense effort. Maybe we should have just gave it to all the guys, but we played so many players, we just gave it to the guys that had 10-plus production points. And special teams, Adam Griffith and Cyrus Jones, you know, did a really good job. Jonathan Allen will be able to practice today, so, you know, we don't really have any injury updates. Bill Washington will actually be probably available for this game. He practiced some last week. We're hopeful that he'll be okay to play in this game as well. You know, this game is obviously an exciting game for our team. Anytime you play what is arguably one of the best teams in the country in Georgia, based on what they've been able to do over 4 games, and I'm talking about a total complete team. You know, Mark has done a fantastic job, you know, in his tenure there, which has been a long time. They've been very consistently good, but you know, this year's team has a lot of experienced players coming back, and offensively, defensively, special teams, I mean, they're really solid in all areas, as their statistics, you know, sort of prove out. Greyson Lambert has done an outstanding job for him at quarterback. He's been very efficient, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country, and has created a tremendous amount of balance for them because they do have one of the best running games in the country. You know, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel are both, you know, outstanding players, and both have been very, very productive for him. Malcolm Mitchell has been a big player for him at receiver. So, you know, they've got a lot of weapons. Defensively, you know, they're one of the highest ranked teams statistically, you know, in the conference as well as the country. You know, Jeremy Pruitt has done a really good job of their players and with their scheme, and they play hard and very aggressive, and very, very, very good team. So this is a good team all the way around. It's going to be challenging to go on the road and play a team like this, but I think our team is excited about the challenges that we have, and certainly want to focus on the things we need to do to be able to go over there and, you know, play the best game possible.
You touched on young players a little bit, but in the secondary, how have Marlon and Minka looked in coverage, and also the secondary overall?
Well, I think they played better in the last game. You know, we're getting better and better each week. You know, it's well documented. We made a couple of mistakes in the Ole Miss game that were very, very costly in terms of big plays, and but you know, we have a lot of faith, trust, and confidence in those guys. They're conscientious. They're doing a good job, and you know, we're hopeful that they will continue to improve and develop throughout the season. And but we have a lot of belief in them.
Right here with Michael. Just two quick ones. Jeremy Pruitt, when was the first time you remember meeting Jeremy Pruitt when he was a high school coach?
You know, I don't know if it's my age or what, but you know, some of these questions you guys ask me about the past, I have a hard time with. But you know, I met him when he was at Hoover. Obviously, he was a player here. Did a fabulous job for us when he was here, off the field for a couple years and then on the field for a few years. And no surprise to me that he has done extremely well as a coordinator both at Florida State and at Georgia.
Just secondly, what will be Bo Scarborough's status this week? Is suspension being over?
Yeah, Bo is ready to play. You know, he's been practicing, so he's been cleared medically. His suspension is over. And we'll work hard to try to create a role for him. May take some time to get him back in the groove of things, but that's certainly the plan.
You've mentioned the wide receivers' kind of lack of consistency. What are you seeing? Is it just mental? Is it physical? What's going
Well,
on?
I think we have a lot of guys playing. Losing Robert Foster really, hurt us at that position. He and our Darius Stewart, even though they didn't have a lot of experience, they were the most experienced players that they had, that we had, and both are explosive players and had played a lot and were really, really getting better as Robert played better and better in each and every game. So, now we're playing our Darius Stewart and a freshman. And we have several young guys backing them up. And I think it's just a matter of repetition and, learning curve, for those guys in terms of, same thing I said in the beginning, feeling confident and aggressive in what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it, and then being able to go out there and do it that way when the game comes. And that's something that we're going to continue to work on with those guys.
Nick, just as far as Nick Chubb, what are some of the unique characteristics that he brings to the table? And just with them as a running game as a whole, what are some of the keys for you guys in terms of slowing them down?
Well, first of all, Nick Chubb is very strong, physical, fast, explosive. He's got power. So he is a complete back in every sense of the word. And, he's effective, in their screen game. So, you can't discount him as a receiver in any way, shape, or form either. So this guy is by far the best back we played against all year long. And, don't discount number one either, the next guy that comes in, because he's a pretty good player as well.
Piggybacking on that question, how has the front seven kind of done this season? And you seem to have a lot of depth there along that front seven. So how does that help you in a game where you're going against some physical, good running backs and trying to wear you down?
I don't think there's any question about the fact, they play with some pace, as well, even though they play some regular and, they're not always in spread formations, but they do play with pace. And I think when you have some guys that rotate in there and keep guys fresh, it is helpful. We've only played against one team that has actually played, a little bit like Georgia does, at least 50% of the time. Which is in what I call regular people, and that was Wisconsin, to some degree. So for the last 3 weeks, we haven't played against that type of team. So, we're looking forward to the challenge of trying to get back to being able to play, that kind of football. But it's very physical, direct runs. They can run the ball on the perimeter. They have a very well-conceived scheme of, play action passes as well as, the modern day, run pass, option passes. So all those things, present challenges in defense. And I think it's going to take 11 guys really doing their job well to be able to play well against a team that has as many weapons and as much balance as Georgia does.
I don't want to hog the mic, but a couple of questions if I could. Since you all last played Georgia, they've made a lot of changes, or some changes. Had kind of an Alabama slant from the weight room to Jeremy to even some guys in the office and practice schedule. What were your thoughts on that, watching that from afar?
Well, I would say they look a lot like some of our teams of the past, very physical, don't make a lot of mistakes, don't beat themselves much. And they play with a lot of toughness, and they're very aggressive on both sides of the ball. And, that's the kind of team that we've always sort of aspired to have here. And, it certainly looks like that's the kind of team they have developed there.
And secondly, this is the earliest that Alabama's had a loss in I guess your tenure. What kind of effect have you seen from coaching staff, team? How's everyone reacted?
Well, I think, how you respond to a loss, says a lot about your character. I like the way our team responded in the last game. And, this will be a much bigger challenge, for them, playing on the road and playing, one of the better teams in the country, if not one of the best. So, it'll tell us a lot about our team this week and how they respond. But I've been pleased with the way they practice, the way they've tried to prepare, the things that they learned, from the loss. And I think we've gotten better. I just think it's important for us to continue to do that.
Coach, through 4 games, how would you assess Jake Coker's play, and how do you feel about him going into a game like this?
Well, I think Jake has improved and played well. We had 6 drops in the last game, which is, didn't help, the so-called statistics that a lot of people look at, but not that I look at. It's more, did you do what you were supposed to do on the play? Did you throw the ball where you were supposed to? Did you, manage the team? And I think in all those areas he has gotten better and better and better. I think he's gotten more confident. And I think he's playing now with a little more passion about what he's doing rather than thinking about what he's doing, which I think is a really good thing. So we're pleased with the development. We just got to continue to improve as a group and play better around him on a more consistent basis.
Kind of along those lines, I wanted to ask you about the offensive line, and where does the big challenge come from Georgia's defense on that group?
Well, first of all, our offensive line has done a pretty good job. Last week's game was probably not a good game to, sort of get plain vanilla in like we did, because those guys stunted about every down. And you get some big little plays when you do that. They make you look bad every now and then because somebody comes free, and it was very similar to when they played Georgia. And then every now and then you break one because somebody's not in the right gap. So we had a little bit of that in the game. Probably not a good type of team to do that against, but it wasn't really that the offensive line didn't do a good job. I think we could have finished blocks a little bit better, and I think any of those guys would probably tell you that. Could have done a little bit better in pass protection at times. But all in all, Georgia's defense is very good up front, very physical up front. They run well on defense. They got, good pass rushers, 2 of them on the edges. The secondary plays, very, very well, sound fundamentally in terms of what they do. And that's why they've got a very good defense overall. I don't think there's one part of their defense that you would say, well, here's a weakness and here's a strength. I think they play pretty sound and solid throughout.
Got another question about Jeremy Pruitt. What was it about his time here that you saw, like, that he was the potential for him to be the defensive coordinator he is now? And then how much interaction have you had since he left?
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jeremy, and, I think he knows that, as all the guys that have worked here and done well for us, that we appreciate the job that they did, and we're happy to see them doing well, when they go on to do other things, which is, the goal and aspirations that most of our assistant coaches have. They want to be coordinators, they want to be head coaches, and no different than I was when I was an assistant. So we're happy to see him do well. We have a good relationship, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for the job that he did here. I think he did a fantastic job here, and I think it goes without saying the results that he's gotten where he's been. It's very good. It doesn't surprise me, but being a coordinator, even though it was in high school, there's still a lot of similarities the way people play high school football now, because everybody's in a spread. So you got to defend a lot of the same things that we have to defend in college. So that experience probably certainly enhanced, all he did was come here and sort of translate what we called things to what he probably did before to some degree, and added some good things to what we did, and probably has added some better things to what he does now. So guy's a really good coach. Players respond well to him, and he's a good teacher.
Last one in front with John.
Nick, you mentioned that Greyson Lambert has made Georgia more balanced. What have you kind of seen from him that he does well?
Well, I didn't say he made him more balanced. I said he's done a good job of creating balance for them with his efficiency as a passer and the skill players that they have. So it wasn't a comparison. It was just that they have that. So he's very accurate with the ball, makes really good decisions, gets rid of the ball quickly, and has been very, very effective. So it's going to be very challenging for us. Anytime you play a team just runs the ball. You can do some things. If you play a team that just passes the ball, you can do some things. But, when they can do both, it makes it a little bit more difficult. You can't, not much of a cheat sheet going in. You just got to play good, sound, solid football. You got to cover people. You got to play your gaps up front. especially tackle well some great backs and be able to cover people, you know, when they pass. So there's no place that you can say we don't need to play well against this team.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.